When the Galactic Council overstepped, humanity's rage erupted. Part 5, the massive council fleet called the Hammer of Unity, was on its way to Earth. 800 warships carrying enough firepower to glass entire planets. They would arrive in 10 days. President Tajan looked at the intelligence reports and knew humanity could not win conventionally. So he authorized something that would change the galaxy forever. Project Prometheus had been a secret for 15 years. Only the highest levels of government knew it existed. Scientist Yuna had led the research team. She stood before President Tajan and his cabinet to explain what they had built. "We found a way to destabilize stars," she said simply. "By triggering cascading quantum reactions, we can cause a sun to go supernova. The device is small, easy to hide, and nearly impossible to detect until it activates." The room was silent. Finally, someone spoke. "You built a weapon that can destroy entire solar systems?" "Yes," Yuna confirmed. "We have placed devices in orbit around 23 Council home stars. If Earth falls, we trigger them all. The Council's most important worlds will be destroyed. Billions will die. It is mutually assured destruction." Captain Daiho, present as an advisor, stood up angrily. "This is madness. We cannot threaten to kill billions of innocent people. It makes us monsters. It makes us survivors," General Yunji countered coldly. "The Council wants to exterminate us. This gives them a reason to negotiate instead." Ambassador Jiwon looked sick. "If we use this weapon, we become as bad as them. Worse even. How many children live on those worlds? How many innocent people who have nothing to do with this war?" "I know," President Tajan said quietly. "I have thought about nothing else for the past week. But we are out of options. If we do not threaten this, they will destroy Earth and everyone on it. At least this way we have a chance." The vote was close. 7 in favor, 5 against. Tajan had the authority to break the tie. He voted yes. Project Prometheus was authorized. Admiral Sangho commanded Earth's home defense fleet. He was older than Admiral Minji, a veteran of decades of service. He took command of every ship available to defend humanity's birthplace. Military vessels, civilian ships, even old museum pieces were pulled out of retirement and armed with whatever weapons could be fitted. Nearly 2,000 vessels gathered around Earth. Most were barely combat capable. But every human who could fly a ship volunteered. They would fight. They would die, but they would not surrender. Admiral Minji brought the Third Fleet back from the Orion sector in a desperate race against time. They pushed their faster-than-light engines beyond safe limits. 3 ships disintegrated during the journey, unable to handle the stress, but the rest arrived at Earth with 48 hours to spare. She met with Admiral Sangho on his flagship. The 2 commanders studied the tactical displays and knew the truth. Even with their combined forces, they would lose. The math was simple and brutal. "We need a miracle," Sangho said. "Or we need them to make a mistake," Minji replied. A miracle came from an unexpected source. The Varelian species, inspired by Delegate Yorvith's stand, made a decision. They formally withdrew from the Galactic Council and declared themselves allies of humanity. Their fleet of 47 warships arrived at Earth, ready to fight alongside the humans. It was not enough to change the outcome. But the symbolic gesture mattered. Other species began questioning their allegiance. 5 more species declared neutrality and refused to send ships with the Hammer of Unity. Young Huan, now a junior officer after rapid battlefield promotions, served under Wing Commander Hana at a defensive position on Earth's moon. They were preparing for ground combat in case Council troops landed. Hana looked at the young man and remembered him as a scared teenager in a hospital bed. Now he checked weapons and coordinated soldiers with calm efficiency. "You grew up too fast," she told him. "The war did not give me a choice," Juan replied. "None of us had a choice." The Hammer of Unity arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. The Council's final ultimatum was broadcast to every human: unconditional surrender within 1 hour or Earth would be destroyed. Every living human would be killed. President Tajan stood before cameras and addressed not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. Behind him, quantum signals reached out to the 23 Council systems with Prometheus devices. The stars began showing signs of dangerous instability. "You wanted to destroy us for expanding too quickly," Tajan said calmly. "For building homes and having children. You called us aggressive. You called us dangerous. And then you proved how dangerous we could be. He gestured to displays showing the destabilizing council stars. Those suns will explode in 3 hours if we do not stop them. Billions of your people will die. Your homeworlds will burn. This is not a bluff. This is a promise. The council overseer appeared on communication channels. You are insane. You would destroy billions of innocents? You are planning to destroy billions of humans. Taejin replied. You used biological weapons on our colonies. You killed children. You gave us no choice but to respond in kind. So now you have a choice. End this war, negotiate, or we all burn together. The overseer's face twisted with rage. You think we will surrender because of threats? Attack the human homeworld! Destroy them! But the council fleet hesitated. Ship commanders looked at the unstable stars and realized the humans were serious. This was not a bluff. If they attacked Earth, their own families would die. Their own children would burn. Councillor Dabin, the Varelian who had replaced Yorvith as delegate, broadcast on all channels. This must end. Both sides have committed terrible acts. Both sides have killed innocents. This war was started based on lies. It must end based on truth. Behind him, dozens of moderate council members added their voices. They begged for a ceasefire. They demanded the overseer negotiate, but the overseer refused. All ships attack Earth immediately. That is an order. In space, Admiral Minji watched as the council fleet began moving forward, though more slowly than before. Ship commanders were conflicted, but military discipline held. They would follow orders even knowing what it meant. She made her decision. All ships commence final assault on the council command vessel. We take out their leadership. If we die fighting. Commander Junho led the Wraith Squadron on one last desperate mission. 23 fighters had started the war. Only 5 remained. They went in knowing they would not come back. Captain Minho's cruiser Indomitable was barely functional. Hull breaches on every deck, shields barely operating, life support failing. But when Admiral Minji called for volunteers to ram the council command ship, he did not hesitate. All crew to escape pods, he ordered. I am taking her in alone. Sir, we are staying, his crew replied. To a person, they refused to abandon their captain or their ship. Minho felt tears in his eyes. Then let us make this count. The Indomitable engines at maximum power charged directly at the council command ship. Council vessels tried to intercept, but the Wraith fighters ran interference. The battered cruiser slammed into the command ship's shields at full speed. The impact created a massive explosion. The shields collapsed. For a brief moment, the command ship was vulnerable. Every human and Varelian vessel concentrated fire on that one weak point. Hundreds of weapons fired simultaneously. The council command ship, damaged beyond repair, began breaking apart. The overseer's final transmission was a scream of rage before the ship exploded. The council fleet, seeing their command structure destroyed and knowing their home stars were minutes from exploding, stopped advancing. Ship after ship broke formation. Commanders refused to continue the attack. Admiral Kev, second in command, made the decision. All ships cease fire. Withdraw from human territory. The Battle of Earth ended. Humanity had survived. Barely. 3 months later, the galaxy was different. Ambassador G1 stood before a reformed Galactic Council. The old overseer was dead. New leadership, chosen from moderate species, offered humanity unprecedented terms. Full council membership with equal voting power. Recognition of all human territorial claims. Massive reparations for the war. The council also agreed to try the commanders responsible for biological weapons and civilian massacres. The price of victory was measured in lives. Eden's Gate remained a dead world, 400,000 graves. New Busan's population was reduced by a third. Earth had scars that would take generations to heal. Dr. Jinsu still worked in hospitals, treating wounded soldiers and civilians. The trauma surgeon had seen more death than any person should. But he continued working because people still needed help. Young Juan stood at a memorial wall where hundreds of thousands of names were carved. He found his parents' names and placed flowers. Wing Commander Hana stood beside him, a hand on his shoulder. They would be proud of you, she said quietly. I am not proud of what I had to become, Juan replied. I killed people. I did terrible things. For what? For this, Hana said, gesturing at the city around them. People walked the streets freely. Children played in parks. Life continued. For the chance to live without fear. It was not glorious. It was not clean. but it was necessary. President Tajin visited the memorial where Captain Deho's name was carved. The diplomat had died during the final battle, trying one last time to negotiate peace. He had been shot by a council hardliner who refused to accept defeat. When the Galactic Council overstepped, humanity's rage erupted. Part 2. President Tajin stood before the quantum communication array. Behind him, his cabinet watched nervously. The connection to the Galactic Council opened and the Overseer's massive form appeared on the screen. President Tajin, the Overseer said with false pleasantness, I trust you are calling to confirm your compliance with Resolution 7743. I am calling to request an extension, Tajin replied calmly. 30 days is not enough time to evacuate 15 million people. We need at least 6 months. We are also prepared to discuss territorial compromises. The Overseer's expression did not change. Your request is denied. The timeline is more than generous. Other species have evacuated larger populations in less time. Those were temporary settlements, Tajin argued. These are established colonies. People have lives there, homes, businesses. We cannot simply abandon everything. You should have considered that before breeding so prolifically, the Tulgarian delegate interjected from beside the Overseer. Your species lacks the maturity to understand its place in the galactic order. This is a lesson you must learn. Tajin felt anger rising but kept his voice level. We followed every rule, every protocol. We registered our claims properly. We paid all required fees. We did everything by your laws. And now those laws have changed, the Overseer said simply. The Council has spoken. You have 29 days remaining. Use them wisely. The connection ended. Tajin stood staring at the blank screen for a long moment. His chief of staff approached carefully. Sir, what are your orders? Get me Admiral Minji, Tajin said quietly. And somebody find out everything we know about Council military capabilities. Everything. In the Intelligence Division on Earth, Lieutenant Kyung was doing exactly that. She had been working for 18 hours straight, going through intercepted Council communications. What she found made her blood run cold. She burst into the office of her supervisor. Sir, we have a major problem. The evacuation is not the end. It is just the beginning. Her supervisor looked up from his own pile of reports. Explain. Kyung pulled up decrypted files on his screen. These are internal Council economic projections. They show that once humanity loses the Orion colonies, our economy will collapse within 5 years. Trade routes will become unviable. Resource supplies will dry up. Earth will become dependent on Council charity. That could be coincidence, her supervisor said, but he looked worried. There is more. Kyung showed him another file. This is a military planning document. It discusses options for dealing with humanity after we become economically weakened. Options include forced integration into existing Council member territories or gradual population, reduction through controlled resource allocation. They plan to destroy us, slowly, the supervisor whispered. Not if we give them what they want first, Kyung said grimly. But either way, we are finished if we abandon those colonies. Within an hour, her findings were on President Tajin's desk. He read them carefully, then called an emergency cabinet meeting. The room filled with angry voices. This proves they want to eliminate us as competition, the defense secretary shouted. We cannot win a military confrontation, the foreign secretary countered. Their fleet outnumbers ours 20-1. Fighting is suicide, so is surrendering, someone else yelled. Tajin let them argue for several minutes, then held up his hand for silence. We are not surrendering, he said firmly, but we need to be smart about this. We cannot beat them with conventional warfare, so we will not fight conventionally. On New Busan, engineer Nari was watching the news broadcasts when she made her decision. The screen showed images of panicked colonists trying to book passage on transport ships. Prices were skyrocketing. Many people could not afford to leave even if they wanted to. Nari turned off the screen and walked outside. She looked up at the sky, at the sun she had helped position during the planet's terraforming. She thought about the water treatment plants she had designed, the power grid she had helped build. Every piece of infrastructure on this world had been created by humans like her. Blood, sweat, and tears were literally built into this planet's foundations. She called a meeting at the town hall. She expected maybe 50 people. 3,000 showed up. She stood on the steps and addressed the crowd. I am not leaving, she said simply. This is my home. I built it. We all built it. And I am not going to hand it over to aliens who want to steal what we created. But the Council fleet, someone started. Let them come, Nari interrupted. Let them try to force us out. I would rather die defending my home than live as a refugee begging for scraps on Earth. The crowd murmured. Then someone shouted, I am staying too. Another voice joined them. Then another. Within minutes, the entire crowd was chanting agreement. They organized a colony-wide vote. 82% of New Busan's population voted to stay. Similar votes happened across all 15 human colonies in the Orion sector. The message to Earth was clear. The colonists would not leave peacefully. Admiral Minji received authorization from President Taejin to defend the colonies using any means necessary. She knew her small fleet could not win a straight fight, so she had no intention of fighting straight. She called Commander Junho to her office. He commanded the Wraith Squadron, humanity's experimental stealth fighter unit. The ships used technology that the Council did not know humans possessed. They were nearly invisible to standard sensors. How many operational Wraiths do we have? Minji asked. 23, Admiral, but they are still in the testing phase. We have not. The testing phase is over, Minji interrupted. I need your squadron ready for combat operations within 48 hours. Your mission will be surgical strikes against high-value targets, command ships, communication relays, anything that disrupts their coordination, Junho grinned. Finally, I was getting tired of practice runs. Dr. Hyunwoo was working on a different kind of weapon. He called Admiral Minji with his findings. Admiral, I think we can weaponize the sector's stellar phenomena. Explain, Minji said. The Orion sector has unusual gravitational anomalies because of the binary star configuration. We have been studying them for years. If we can lure Council ships into specific zones and then activate focused gravitational pulses, we can crush their ships with forces their shields were not designed to handle. Can you make it work? Give me 3 days and I will give you a weapon the Council has never seen before. Minji smiled coldly. You have 2 days. Captain Deho volunteered for a dangerous mission. He would take the silent promise and try to reach moderate Council members who might oppose the invasion. Ambassador Jiwan insisted on joining him despite the risks. If they catch us making unauthorized diplomatic contacts, they will call it espionage, Deho warned. Then we better not get caught, Jiwan replied. They departed secretly, using false flight plans and civilian transponder codes. Their first contact was with the Varelian delegation. The Varelians were a warrior species who valued honor above everything. Jiwan hoped their sense of fairness might work in humanity's favor. She met the Varelian delegate, a scarred veteran named Yorvith, in a neutral location. She showed him the evidence that Lieutenant Kyung had uncovered. The economic projections, the military planning documents, the proof that the evacuation was just the first step in eliminating humanity. Yorvith studied the documents for a long time. Finally, he looked up at Jiwan. This is not honorable combat. This is assassination disguised as policy. Will your people support us? Jiwan asked. I cannot promise that, Yorvith said carefully. But I will not support this, and I will make sure other species see this evidence. Some of them may feel as I do. It was a small victory, but Jiwan would take it. On the edges of the Orion sector, sensors detected the arrival of the Council Enforcement Fleet. 300 warships representing a dozen different species emerged from hyperspace. Their commander, a Tulgarian admiral named Kev, transmitted a final warning to all human colonies. This is Council Enforcement Fleet Alpha. You have violated Council Resolution 7743 by refusing to evacuate. You have 24 hours to comply. After that, we will begin forcible removal operations. Resistance will be met with appropriate force. In her command center on Kepler Station, Admiral Minji listened to the transmission. Around her, her staff waited silently for orders. She looked at the tactical display showing her 78 ships against their 300. The math was brutally simple. She was outgunned and outnumbered, but she was also angry. She opened a transmission on all frequencies. Every human colony heard it. Every ship in her fleet heard it. The Council fleet heard it. And most importantly, Earth heard it. This is Admiral Minji, commander of the 3rd Defense Fleet. To the Council forces, you have come to take our homes. You have come to take worlds that we built with our own hands. You claim we are aggressive. You claim we are dangerous. You are about to find out how right you are. She paused, letting her words sink in. We will not go quietly. We will not surrender what we built. If you want our worlds, you will have to burn us out of them. And we promise you this, we will make you regret it. Every ship you send, we will destroy. Every soldier you land, we will fight. You think we are weak because we are few. You are about to learn the difference between being few and being weak. When the Galactic Council overstepped, humanity's rage erupted. Part 4, the Council's second attack was different. They learned from their mistakes. Instead of trying to fight humanity's ships in open battle, they changed tactics. If they could not defeat the human fleet quickly, they would starve the colonies into submission. Admiral Kev deployed his remaining ships in a wide blockade around the entire Orion sector. No supply ships would get through. No food, no medicine, no reinforcements. Eventually, the humans would have to surrender or watch their people die slowly. On New Busan, the effects became visible within 2 weeks. Dr. Jinsu worked in the colony's main hospital, and every day brought new challenges. Medical supplies were running low. He had to make terrible decisions about who received treatment and who did not. The wounded kept coming, but he had less and less to work with. He had been on duty for 72 hours straight when a teenager was brought in with severe burns. The boy's name was Juan. He had been injured fighting fires after a council bombardment. His parents had died in the same attack. Jinsu looked at the burns and knew the boy needed a full regeneration treatment, but they only had 3 regeneration units left and 12 patients who needed them. He made his choice based on who had the best chance of survival. Juan was young and strong. He would get the treatment. While the machine worked on Juan's injuries, the boy looked up at Jinsu. "Doctor, are we going to win this?" Jinsu did not know how to answer. He settled for honesty. "I do not know, but we are not giving up." "Good," Juan said, "because I want to fight. When I heal, I want to join the defense forces. They took my parents. I want to make them pay." Jinsu saw the rage and pain in the boy's eyes. War was turning children into soldiers. It was wrong, but they had no choice. Earth's response to the blockade was General Yunji. She commanded special operations and had a reputation for doing impossible things. President Taejin gave her a simple order: break the blockade. "I cannot break it with force," Yunji told him, "but I can make holes in it. Small strikes deep behind their lines. Make them worry about their own supplies instead of ours." She launched Operation Midnight Rain. Human Special Forces teams infiltrated Council territory, using captured ships and false identification. They were small teams, never more than a dozen people. But they struck at the Council's weak points. A supply depot exploded on a Council world. A communication relay was sabotaged. A prison station holding captured humans was liberated in a daring raid. The operations were dangerous and costly. Many soldiers did not return. But every successful mission forced the Council to divert resources from the blockade. The war took a darker turn when a Council commander named Velk decided he was tired of the stalemate. He commanded a carrier group near the agricultural colony of Eden's Gate. The colony had 2 million people and vast farms that supplied food to 3 other human worlds. Velk deployed a biological weapon without authorization from the Council. It was designed to destroy crops, making the planet uninhabitable. But the weapon was too aggressive. It did not just kill plants. It killed everything. Within 72 hours, 400,000 people were dead. The survivors evacuated in panic, leaving behind a tomb world. The images of the dying spread across human space. Parents holding dead children. Farmers watching their poisoned fields. Cities filled with bodies. The galaxy was horrified. Even Council species that supported the war questioned the use of biological weapons. It violated every treaty, every law, every principle of civilized warfare. The Council overseer held an emergency session. Some delegates demanded that Velk be arrested and tried for war crimes. The overseer refused. Instead, he quietly promoted Velk to admiral and gave him command of a larger fleet. The message was clear. The Council would do whatever it took to win. President Taejin received the news about Eden's Gate while meeting with his cabinet. He listened to the reports in silence. 400,000 dead, murdered by a weapon that was illegal under galactic law, and the Council was rewarding the killer. He stood up from the table and walked to the window. Outside, he could see people going about their lives on Earth they did not know yet. But they would soon. And when they did, everything would change. "Open the weapons vaults," he said quietly. His defense secretary looked shocked. "Sir, those weapons are banned. We agreed never to use." They used biological weapons on civilians, Taijin interrupted. His voice was cold. They killed 400,000 people, including children. They are not playing by rules anymore. Neither will we. He turned to face his cabinet. Authorize deployment of antimatter warheads. Authorize the AI-guided swarm missile systems. Authorize kinetic bombardment platforms. Everything we locked away because it was too terrible to use. Authorize it all. Mr. President, if we use those weapons, we become as bad as they are, someone protested. No, Taijin said firmly. We become survivors. The Council wants to exterminate us. I will not let that happen. Not without making them pay a price that will haunt them for generations. Captain Deho's diplomatic mission achieved a breakthrough. Delegate Yorvith provided detailed intelligence about Council fleet movements and weaknesses. More importantly, he convinced 3 other species to publicly question the war. The Heridian Republic issued a statement condemning the biological attack. The Plaxi Federation withdrew its ships from the Council fleet. The Mirren Collective declared neutrality and opened its territory as a safe haven for human refugees. It was not enough to end the war, but it fractured the Council's unity. For the first time in 3,000 years, member species were openly defying the Overseer. Admiral Minji used the intelligence from Yorvith to plan a counteroffensive. She called it Operation Thunderhead. The goal was to break the blockade and restore supply lines to the colonies. Her forces struck at 3 points simultaneously. Commander Junho's Wraiths attacked the Council's logistics fleet, destroying fuel tankers and supply ships. A strike group led by Captain Minho hit a major Council staging area, catching their ships during a crew rotation. Meanwhile, Admiral Minji herself led the main assault against the weakest point in the blockade. The operation lasted 5 days. It was brutal and costly. Humanity lost 18 ships. But the blockade was broken. Supply convoys reached the starving colonies. New Busan received food and medicine. Children stopped dying from malnutrition. Wing Commander Hana led ground forces in liberating 2 colonies that had been occupied by Council troops. The battles were vicious. Buildings became fortresses. Streets became death traps. Neither side gave mercy. Hana's forces retook the colony of First Landing in a week of house-to-house fighting. When it was over, she walked through the ruined streets and saw Council bodies mixed with human ones. So much death. So much waste. All because the Council wanted resources they did not earn. Young Huan, now healed from his burns, joined Hana's unit as a private. He was 16 years old and should have been in school. Instead, he carried a rifle and fought alongside adults. Hana tried to send him away, but he refused. I have nothing else, Huan told her. No parents, no home. Just this war. Let me fight. Hana looked at the boy and saw what the war was doing to humanity's children, but she also saw determination and courage. She let him stay. On Earth, engineer Nari worked on military projects after being evacuated from New Busan. Her expertise in infrastructure was redirected toward defense. She designed a prototype planetary shield generator that could protect entire worlds from orbital bombardment. It was a breakthrough, but production was slow. Earth had the resources, but building the generators took time. They managed to complete one and installed it on New Busan. 1 world protected, 14 still vulnerable. Ambassador Jiwan addressed a growing coalition of Council species who opposed the war. She stood before delegates from 19 different worlds and showed them everything. The evidence of the Overseer's deception, the fabricated intelligence, the illegal biological attack, the deaths of children. You have a choice, she told them. You can continue supporting a war based on lies, a war that violates every principle your species claims to value, or you can stand for what is right, even if it is difficult. 12 species formally withdrew their support from the war. It was a political earthquake. The Council was fracturing, but the Overseer was not finished. Long-range sensors detected something that made every human commander's blood run cold. A massive fleet was forming near the Council's core worlds. It was 3 times larger than the first invasion force. Over 800 warships. Intelligence reports indicated they were preparing for a final assault. Not just against the Orion colonies. Against Earth itself. The Council was done with half measures. They were going to destroy humanity's homeworld and end the war permanently. Admiral Minji received the intelligence report and sat in her office for a long time. 800 ships. Her fleet, even with recent additions from allied species, had less than 200 combat-capable vessels. The math was impossible. She called President Taijin. "Mr. President, we cannot win this. Even with everything we have, even with every advantage, we cannot stop that many ships." "I know," Taijin said quietly, "which is why we are going to do something desperate." "What?" "Something that will either save us or condemn us," Taijin replied. "Stand by for classified orders." When the Galactic Council overstepped, humanity's rage erupted. Part 3, the Battle of New Busan, began at exactly 6 in the morning local time. People on the planet's surface looked up to see bright flashes of light in orbit as weapons fire lit up the darkness of space. Admiral Kev's Council fleet crossed into the defensive perimeter with 300 warships, arranged in perfect formation. Admiral Minji's 78. Human ships appeared to be arranged in a desperate, defensive cluster around the planet. It looked like they were trying to create a protective wall. Admiral Kev studied the formation and laughed. "They think they can hold us back with that? Pathetic." He opened a channel to the human fleet. "Admiral Minji, this is your final chance. Surrender now and we will allow your ships to evacuate peacefully." Minji's response was short. "Come and take them." The Council fleet advanced. That was when Commander Junho struck. 23. Wraith fighters had been hiding in the shadow of New Busan's moon, running completely silent. Their stealth systems made them invisible to Council sensors. They waited until the Council command ship was exactly where they needed it to be. Then they attacked. The Wraiths appeared seemingly out of nowhere, already firing. Their weapons tore through the command ship's defensive screens before anyone could react. Unyo led his squadron in a perfect strike pattern, targeting the ship's massive communication arrays. Explosions blossomed across the command ship's hull. "What is happening?" Admiral Kev shouted as his ship shook from impacts. Where did they come from? His sensor officer stared at his screens in confusion. "I do not know, Admiral. They just appeared. Our sensors show nothing." By the time the Council ships reacted, the Wraiths were already gone, vanishing back into the darkness. The command ship's communication systems were destroyed. The Council fleet suddenly could not coordinate properly. Admiral Minji had been waiting for exactly this moment. "All ships execute scatter pattern Delta, now." The human defensive formation suddenly exploded in all directions. Ships that had been grouped together dispersed at maximum speed, moving in patterns that seemed random but were carefully planned. The Council fleet split up to pursue exactly as Minji had predicted. That was when they encountered Dr. Hyunwoo's surprise. Council cruiser chasing 3 human destroyers suddenly found itself in a region of space where gravity did not behave normally. Warning alarms screamed as impossible forces gripped the ship. The hull began to creak and groan. Then it began to compress. "Reverse engines," the cruiser captain shouted.
"Full power."
It was too late. The gravitational forces increased exponentially. The cruiser's shields collapsed. The hull buckled. Within 30 seconds, the ship was crushed into a dense ball of metal and debris. Dr. Hyunwoo watched from his monitoring station and activated another gravitational weapon. A second Council ship died the same way, then a third. On New Busan's surface, Wing Commander Hana was preparing ground defenses. She was a retired Earth military officer who had moved to New Busan to live peacefully. Those plans had changed. Now she commanded 2,000 volunteers armed with whatever weapons they could find. She stood on the walls of the colony's main city and watched as Council troop transport ships entered the atmosphere. They were coming to force the evacuation by landing soldiers. Hana smiled grimly and activated her communication device. "All batteries you are authorized to fire. Show them what we think of invaders." Hidden weapons emplacements across the city opened fire. The Council had expected civilian targets with minimal defenses. Instead, they encountered coordinated anti-aircraft fire. The first 3 transport ships exploded before they even reached the ground. The others scattered in confusion. One transport managed to land on the outskirts of the city. Council soldiers poured out expecting terrified civilians. Instead, they faced armed colonists fighting for their homes. The battle was fierce and desperate. The Council soldiers were better trained and equipped, but the humans fought with a fury that shocked them. In orbit, Captain Minho commanded the heavy cruiser Indomitable. His ship was humanity's most powerful warship, but it was being overwhelmed. 5 Council cruisers had surrounded him, pouring fire into his shields. The Indomitable shook with each impact, shields at 15%, his tactical officer reported. We cannot take much more. Keep firing, Minho ordered calmly. Make every shot count. The bridge lights flickered as another barrage hit. Hull breaches were reported on multiple decks. The ship was dying. Minho prepared for the worst. Then something unexpected happened. 17 civilian ships suddenly appeared on sensors. They were cargo haulers, mining vessels, even luxury yachts from nearby colonies. They had jury-rigged weapons to their hulls. Mining lasers, cargo manipulator arms, anything that could be turned into a weapon. They swarmed the council cruisers like angry bees. The council ships were more powerful, but they had never trained to fight against such chaotic, unpredictable tactics. A mining ship rammed one cruiser's engines. A cargo hauler used its manipulator arms to tear off another cruiser's sensor array. Sir, civilian vessels are asking if we need assistance, Minho's communication officer said in disbelief. Minho laughed. Tell them they have perfect timing. All ships coordinate fire on the nearest cruiser. Let us show them what humans can do together. The combined human forces concentrated their fire. One council cruiser exploded, then another. The surviving council ships retreated in confusion. The Indomitable was saved. The battle raged for 18 hours. When it finally ended, both sides were exhausted. The council fleet withdrew to regroup. They had lost 67 ships. Admiral Kev could not believe it. He had started with overwhelming superiority and been bloodied. The human fleet had lost 23 ships. Every loss hurt, but they had survived. More importantly, they had proven something. They could fight. They could win. President Tejan stood before cameras on Earth and broadcast a message to every world in the galaxy. His face was calm, but his eyes were hard. For centuries, the Council has maintained peace by intimidation. By threatening smaller species with overwhelming force. They called us aggressive for building homes. They called us dangerous for having children. They decided we should be erased from the Orion sector. They thought we would submit, he paused. They were wrong. We are not aggressive. We are protective. We are not dangerous. We are determined. You came to take our homes and we showed you what happens when you threaten human families. This is not aggression. This is survival. And we are very good at surviving. The Council can send more ships. They can bring their entire fleet. It will not matter. Every ship they send, we will fight. Every demand they make, we will resist. We will not surrender. We will not run. If they want to destroy us, they will have to pay a price that will make them question if it was worth it. The message spread across the galaxy. Other species watched in shock. The weak humans had drawn blood from the mighty Council. It seemed impossible. On Apex Prime, the Council's central station, an emergency session was called. The debate was fierce. Some delegates demanded overwhelming retaliation. Others began questioning the entire operation. The Vakrine overseer pounded his throne. We must crush them completely. Show every species what happens when you defy the Council. We already tried that, the Varelian delegate Yorvith said coldly. And they humiliated us. Perhaps we should consider that we made a mistake. Mistake, the overseer roared. We gave them a lawful order. Based on false information, Yorvith countered. He displayed the documents that Ambassador Jiwan had shown him. This was never about expansion. This was about seizing their resources. That is not council justice. That is theft. The chamber erupted into arguments. The unity that had passed Resolution 7743 was cracking. Back on New Busan, Engineer Nari walked through the damaged sections of the city. Buildings were destroyed. Fires still burned in some areas. She saw volunteers pulling bodies from rubble. The cost of resistance was becoming clear. She found Wing Commander Hana sitting on a pile of debris, staring at a wall where the names of the dead were being written. 43 colonists had died defending the city. Was it worth it? Nari asked quietly. Hana looked up at her. Ask me again in a year. If we are still here living in our homes, then yes, it was worth it. If we are all dead or enslaved, then no. That is not a very comforting answer, Nari said. I know, Hana replied, but it is an honest one. In space, Admiral Minji was meeting with her officers. The reports were mixed. They had won the first battle, but everyone knew it was just the beginning. The Council had thousands more ships. They would come back with a larger fleet. Commander Junho entered the conference room. His flight suit was still covered in burn marks from the battle. Admiral, my pilots are ready for another round. Just say when. We will need you soon enough, Minji promised. She looked around at her exhausted officers. I know what you are all thinking. We won a battle, but we cannot win the war. The math does not work. They have too many ships, so what do? Someone asked. Minji smiled coldly. We make them question if winning is worth the cost. We make every battle so bloody, so expensive that even if they win, they lose. We drag them into a war that costs them more than they ever expected to pay. When the Galactic Council overstepped, humanity's rage erupted. Part 1. The lights in the council chamber were too bright for human eyes. Ambassador G1 had learned to ignore the discomfort over the past 20 years. She sat in the human delegation seat, watching the other species discuss trade routes and mining rights. It was supposed to be a normal day. Then everything changed. The Vacrian overseer stood from his massive throne, his forearms spread wide as he called for silence. The chamber went quiet instantly. G1 felt something cold twist in her stomach. This was not on the agenda. The Council has reached a decision regarding the human expansion in the Orion sector, the overseer announced. His voice echoed through the vast hall. After careful consideration, we have determined that humanity's growth presents a destabilizing factor to galactic peace. Jiwan stood quickly. Overseer, I was not informed of any discussion about human territories. We should have been— Sit down, Ambassador. The Overseer's third eye focused on her with obvious irritation. This matter was decided in closed session. Emergency Resolution 7743 has passed with 40 votes in favor. All human colonies in the Orion sector must be evacuated within 30 days. The territory will be placed under Council administration. The words hit Jiwan like a physical blow. 15 million humans lived in the Orion colonies. New Busan alone had 6 million people. These were not temporary settlements. They were homes. Children had been born there. People had died and been buried in that soil. You cannot do this, Jiwan said. Her voice shook with barely controlled anger. Those worlds were properly claimed and registered. We followed every council protocol. We have rights. You have what rights we grant you. The Vacrian overseer interrupted. Humanity is a junior member of this council. You have been expanding at an alarming rate. Your species breeds too quickly and spreads too far. This must be controlled. Jiwan looked around the chamber desperately. Some alien delegates looked uncomfortable. Most looked away. A few nodded in agreement with the overseer. She realized with growing horror that this had been planned, coordinated. They had decided humanity's fate without even pretending to listen. 15 million people, she said quietly. Where do you expect them to go? That is your problem, not ours, the Tulgarian delegate said from across the chamber. Perhaps you should have thought about the consequences before expanding so aggressively. The session ended. G1 stood alone as the other delegates filed out. No one would meet her eyes. She activated her communication device with trembling hands and sent an emergency message to Earth. Then she walked out of the chamber with her head held high, though inside she felt like screaming. Halfway across the galaxy, Captain Deho was guiding his ship through a routine supply run when the message came through. The diplomatic vessel called Silent Promise was carrying civilian leaders back from a conference on Earth. The ship was comfortable and peaceful. That ended the moment Deho read the priority message. He sat in his command chair and read it 3 times. Then he called his first officer over. Is this real? He asked, showing her the screen. Communications confirms it came directly from Ambassador Jiwan, the officer replied. It has all the proper encryption codes. Among the passengers was Counselor Soman from New Busan. She had spent the last week on Earth discussing plans for a new school system on her world. She had pictures of her grandchildren displayed proudly in her cabin. Deho knew he had to tell her personally. He found her in the observation lounge looking out at the stars. Counselor Soman, I need to speak with you. She turned with a smile that vanished when she saw his face. What happened? Deho told her. He watched her face go pale, then red, then pale again. She sat down heavily in a chair and stared at nothing. My grandchildren, she whispered. They were born on New Busan. It is their home. The only home they have ever known. I know, Deho said. He felt helpless. I am sorry. What do we do? Soman asked. Daiho had no answer. In orbit around New Busan, Dr. Hyunwoo was examining mineral samples from the planet's southern continent when his assistant burst into the laboratory. Doctor, you need to see this now. Hyunwoo followed him to the observation deck. His assistant pointed at the screens showing deep space scans. Council fleet movements. 3 separate battle groups converging on the Orion sector boundary. Hyunwoo enhanced the image. His breath caught. Those were not exploration vessels. They were warships. Hundreds of them. Why would they... He trailed off as understanding hit him. The Tethrium deposits. His assistant looked confused. What? We found Tethrium last month in the asteroid belts. Rare element. Essential for faster-than-light drives. Hyunwoo pulled up survey data on another screen. The readings suggested massive deposits throughout the sector. I sent the report to Earth and the Council 3 weeks ago. You think they are taking our colonies for the Tethrium? I think they decided we should not have it, Hyunwoo said bitterly. He started downloading all his research data to encrypted storage, and they are not even bothering to hide it anymore. On Kepler Station at the edge of the Orion sector, Admiral Minji was reviewing fleet readiness reports when the orders came through from Earth Command. She read them once, then read them again. Then she stood and walked to the viewport of her office. New Busan hung in space below like a blue jewel. She could see the lights of cities on the night side. She had visited the planet twice. She remembered children playing in parks, farmers proud of their crops, engineers showing off new buildings, people who had worked for generations to make something beautiful. Now she had orders to evacuate them all, to abandon everything they had built, to run away because the Council said so. Admiral Minji called her senior officers to an emergency meeting. They gathered in the conference room, 12 men and women who had served with her for years. She displayed the orders on the main screen. Those are our instructions from Earth Command, she said. Begin immediate evacuation of all Orion sector colonies. We have 30 days. The room was silent. Then her second-in-command, a veteran named Taeyang, spoke up. Admiral, there are not enough ships in the entire human fleet to move 15 million people in 30 days. I know, Minji said. Another officer asked the question everyone was thinking. What if we refuse? Minji looked at each of them in turn. Then we will be disobeying direct orders from Earth Command. We will be starting a war with the Galactic Council. Our fleet has 78 combat-capable ships. Intelligence estimates the Council can deploy over 3,000 warships if needed. So we lose, Taeyang said flatly. Most likely, Minji agreed. She turned to look out the viewport again at New Busan. But I keep thinking about something my grandfather told me. He was a soldier during the resource wars on Earth. He said that some things are worth fighting for even when you cannot win. Some lines cannot be crossed without a response. She turned back to her officers. I am not ordering anyone to do anything. This is a choice each of us must make. I am going to send a message to Earth Command. I am going to tell them that my fleet will hold position. We will defend these colonies. If the Council wants them, they will have to go through us. That is suicide, one officer said. Probably, Minji agreed, but it is the right thing to do. Anyone who wants to leave can do so now. No judgment. No consequences. This is not your fight unless you choose to make it yours. No one moved. Taeyang smiled grimly. I always wanted to be remembered for something. Might as well be for standing up to bullies. One by one, the other officers voiced their agreement. Minji felt pride mixed with sadness. She was sending good people to their probable deaths. But she was also giving them a choice. And they were choosing to fight. On Earth, President Taijin received 3 messages within an hour. One from Ambassador Jiwon detailing the Council's ultimatum. One from Dr. Hyunwoo explaining his theory about the Tethrium deposits. And one from Admiral Minji stating her intention to defend the colonies. He sat alone in his office for a long time. His advisors were arguing in the next room. He could hear them through the door. Some wanted to comply with the Council. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to try negotiation. Everyone had an opinion. No one had a good answer. Taejin thought about his own children. They were grown now, with families of their own. One of his daughters lived on New Busan. She had sent him a message just yesterday, excited about her son's first day at school. What would he tell her? That she had to leave her home because aliens said so? That humanity would just accept this? That they would run away with their tails between their legs? He made his decision. He opened a secure channel to Admiral Minji. When her face appeared on the screen, he saw the determination in her eyes. Admiral, he said quietly, hold the line.